welcome to the Creative Grind. Oh my gosh, it is so good to see everyone. Oops, I don't know what I'm doing. Hold on. There we go. Sorry, my fingers were getting a little bit topsy-turvy. Anyways, welcome guys so much to the Creative Grind. So happy to see you. Yeah, here we are. I can't believe we're here for the Authortube Writing Conference 2022. Let's go ahead and introduce ourselves first, and we'll get going, and we'll tell you all about the Creative Grind and what you're in store for today. So, Cory, why don't you go first?
Of course. So, hi, my name is Cory N Davis, and I am a writer outside of Tokyo, Japan. I have been revising my novel, and that whole revision process is a whole video series over on my channel if you're interested in revision work. I also have a workshop that I'll be doing about revision over on my channel pretty soon over at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time if you guys would like to attend that. And Haley will also be there, so super excited for it. But I am really interested in what we're talking about right now on the Creative Grind because I am also a full-time teacher over here. So this is going to be an interesting one for sure.
Definitely. And for those who are new or haven't been to my channel before, my name is Haley. I'm a writer and educator based out of Wisconsin. So I've also been teaching the last couple of years, but I'm actually transitioning into getting my master's in creative writing this August. So I have 1 month left in Wisconsin, and then I'm moving on over to Indiana. So that's going to be quite the transition, but I've been writing on and off my entire life as well since I was a kid. And really, I've had to learn how to find time to write in the midst of a working life my entire life. Whether I'm a full-time student or a full-time worker, I've always had to adjust based on my schedule. And that's what made me discover what the Creative Grind is and what brought this presentation to you guys. So we are at the Creative Grind, finding time to write in the midst of a writing life. We're going to delve into what the Creative Grind is, the pros and cons, the difference between a working writer and the starving artist, and how that affects our creativity. And finally, we're going to find ways to maintain a healthy writing habit during the chaos of a working life. After all, for most of us, writing does not yet pay the bills, so we have to find time to write while we're working on other things. We're also going to end with a Q&A, so if you have any questions along the way of our presentation, please leave them in the chat. And our lovely moderator, Eva, from the channel Just Eva, is going to mark them for us to answer during our Q&A portion. If you enjoy the session, please like this video, consider subscribing to both Cory and myself, and all links are going to be found in the description box below. So without ado, let's keep going. Let's get started here. Oops, come on. Oh, no, there we go. All right. So before we get into it and how we're going to find time to pave out time to write during the working life, we need to know what we're talking about. So what is the creative grind? The creative grind is a concept that writers and authors must always be working towards an end goal with their writing despite work or family obligations. So although this can motivate some, it is also a toxic concept that can often hinder creativity depending on how the writer uses the creative grind. So some examples might be the writer who wakes up at 4 a.m. to write 4 hours before work, the writer who who might say that they're not, that you're not a real writer if you do not write every single day of your writing life, right? Sacrificing sleep and other obligations for the art. Also, like a writer who craves to carve out time for their work, making it work with their pre-existing schedule. So that might be a little bit more of a positive one. Cory, do you have another example?
The only other one I would say is a very self-sacrificing attitude, pretty much finding yourself the victim and always being the victim. Like, oh, well, because I'm the artist, like it's just prone to be bad things will always happen, or I'm prone to never get paid. So it's very victim complex.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so now we're gonna transition into some pros and cons with the creative grind. So, Cory, if you want to take the pros.
Sure. So some pros is it can motivate the writer to find some time to write despite work, other obligations. Can also kind of create this competition mindset, urgency and desperation. So you're more willing to get a lot of stuff done. You probably will get a lot of stuff done, honestly. But of course, the downside of that is you will always use as an excuse of, oh, well, I love to go out and hang out with you, but I'm a writer, so I have to do this to a point of excess, again feeding into that victim, so it doesn't stay pro for very long usually.
Yep, so that transitions us nicely into our cons. So, when it gets to that negative part of that competition mindset, it can cause the writer to feel unworthy or self conscious if they're not meeting expectations set by other writers in the industry. It can impose some imposter syndrome, it can hinder creativity, and it can cause burnout. So, hindering creativity and burnout go hand in hand. As many of us know, when we're feeling burnt out, we often can't be as creative as we want to be. So now that we know about the creative grind, we're going to go into the two types of creative grind that we have. So we have the working writer and we have the starving artist. And I guess you guys can tell right away which one's going to be the healthy one, which one's going to be the unhealthy one. But let's get into it. Are you a working writer or are you a starving artist?
So, working writer is a healthy creative grind. This is someone who takes care of themselves, their job, family, while also setting appropriate time aside for art. So, you maintain, or to the best of your ability, maintain a healthy work life balance. You understand that the artist does not have to be tortured or to suffer in order to be fulfilled. And you also generate a growth mindset. So you're constantly growing and meeting goals appropriately.
Perfect. And then we have the unhealthy creative grind, the starving artist. So they sacrifice everything for their art, including time, family, money, and mental health. Things that to produce meaningful, impactful art, they must be tortured in some capacity of their life, relationships, family, lack of money, etc. Often abuses substances to help produce their creativity. So alcohol, drugs, etc. And we're talking there in like the unhealthy way, like abusing substances. Having a glass of wine doesn't count with a write-in. Often will not get help for mental health issues. They usually die young, as we know from the masters. And again, that's our unhealthy creative grind. So let's discuss here, why should we make the distinction between the working writer and the starving artist? So how do we know if our creative grind is healthy? I think that's the main point. We want to have a healthy creative grind, not an unhealthy one. What do you think, Cory?
So, like, one of the main things that I usually look for my health's sake is looking at the stories I'm telling myself. If again I'm getting into that victim complex, like, why do I always assume I don't have time for anything else? How am I looking at my schedule? And usually that ends up with boundary setting and how much time can I realistically spend versus how much time do I have to use for other things, such as talking to people I haven't seen in a while, making sure my mental health is stable, therapy, work, laundry, all these other tasks that I have to do for health and safety reasons. I can't just not do all of that for writing's sake. So making sure that I have appropriate time set aside for writing and not just letting it take over everything.
Right, exactly. It's the same for me. I think the most important part is just figuring out the right way to be creative, because there's always, they think of there's like a right way to be creative and all this stuff. And so I think the healthy mindset is knowing that the right way is whatever works for you and your schedule and your mental health. And I think bringing that back into the creative narrative, it's what's really important for writers and what we need to start breaking down that stereotype of the starving artist and moving it towards the working writer. So finally, we're going to get into how do we find time to write in the midst of a working life? All right. So we got find time that works for you, setting realistic goals. Don't, or at least try not to compare yourself to others. Set a predetermined time aside to creative grind. And remember again that there's no right way to be creative. It's whatever works for you is the right way. And then finally, you got to keep a growth mindset. So that is the biggest component of this healthy creative grind, is a growth mindset. So, okay, this didn't work for me today. What can I do tomorrow to make myself feel better about my work? So for me, like, one of the reasons that I started Authortube in general was to try to change my mindset around writing, and then also devote more time to my writing. So on and off throughout college, like, finding time to write was always a struggle because I always had so many things going on. I had homework, I had 2 jobs, sometimes 3 jobs, while I was a full-time student. And so minimizing my goals to make sure that I have time to actually accomplish those goals and make myself feel better about getting stuff done is actually really vital to my process now, because I was the writer who would always over maximize my goals. I would set my goals way too freaking high. And then I would never meet those goals, which started me into that victim mindset that Cory was talking about, of blaming myself, canceling on friends, not wanting, but then I still wasn't getting the writing done either. So it's like, it's kind of a downward spiral. And so you're trying to make yourself feel good about your work and your process. And that way you feel happier when you're getting work done, when you're able to sit down and write, and then you're just being good to yourself, you know? What about you, Cory? Do you have any examples?
Mostly it's the realistic goals. So, like, I would figure out what is my overarching goal. So if my overarching goal, like for right now, is completing draft 2, I figure out, okay, what am I capable of in 1 month? Okay, what am I capable of in 1 week? What am I capable of realistically in a single sit down session? And keeping those goals realistic, even like under what I'm capable of doing. So I'm not constantly pushing the limit over and over and over again and hitting burnout constantly, because that's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
So understanding that I can't go 2000% every day. That's just, it's not wise. It's not smart. Special events are one thing, challenges are one thing, but doing that every day is just not healthy. And understanding that and giving myself grace.
Yeah, definitely. So remember, just because you might not have the time to write every day does not make you any less of a writer than anyone else. All right. That, if you take away anything from this presentation, I want you to take away this. I think this is the big mwah, kiss your friend moment. So now, finding ways to find motivation. All right. So it's all about finding a way to have a healthy work-life balance with your creativity that you can sustain for long periods of time without fear of burnout, right? And finding ways also to fill a creative well. So what do I mean by the creative well? I'll probably make a video on this because we're only have a minute left of the presentation portion, and then we're going into our Q&A. But creative well is just finding ways to nourish yourself through reading, art, doing other things, other creative things, that would end up helping you inspire your creativity for your current, like, work in progress, for instance. So if you're interested in that, let me know and I'll make a separate video on that. But now let's transition into our Q&A portion here. So let's take a look. Do we have any questions in the comments so far?
I haven't seen any questions quite yet. I think there's a lag hitting us.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you, because creative well is something we're not able to touch on a ton, but maybe we can like touch on a little bit. Do you have any particular things that you are your go-to? Like if you can sense yourself burning out, is there a particular thing that you like to do, Haley?
That's a great question. So when I start to feel myself burning out, first of all, it kind of sneaks up on you. So it's definitely something that I'm still working on in terms of noticing when I'm starting to feel burnt out. But I think I just forced myself to stop writing for a few days and just take that time for myself. Like it sucks because it hurts my soul to like force myself not to write. But I think ultimately that helps me just like take time for myself, maybe do a little face mask, force myself to read a book because I rarely have time to read. So reading is a big way for me to kind of nourish and refill that creative well and just try to like mentally flatline for a few days, and then usually I can pick it back up. Plumstone asks, do you use sprints or Pomodoro techniques? Yes, I actually do. I host sprints on my channel, usually once a week, sometimes up to 3 times a week. It depends. Cory and I are doing Witchy Writerly Wednesdays. We're doing bi-weekly, so we do 1-hour sprints on our channels. This upcoming week is on Cory's channel, then the next week's on mine for this summer. And then we're going to switch around sprinting schedule come late August because that's when I'm starting my grad school program. So it's going to change things up a bit. But yes, we do that. I did working writer sprints February, March, April, 3 days a week. And that really helped me to carve up that time to set aside after work for me to write. And that really helped. I'd like to hear more about filling the creative well. What does it mean to you? I will make another video on this. But yeah, it just means taking that time to myself to really refill or finding other sources of inspiration. So reading a book, going to an art museum, doing some art, journaling, different things like outside of your work in progress, basically artistic things.
Definitely try to do something completely different from writing. If you're really, really stuck, like for me, I try to completely disengage and do something entirely different. Be that like going outside, taking a walk. Sometimes I'll like go visit a shrine or something else, something completely unrelated to writing, just simply because even if you do something like try to switch projects, because I know some people try to just switch projects, you're still writing. And if your creative well is low, it may not fill if you're still doing something in the same realm. You might have to completely jump realms.
Exactly. I love going out into nature too to refill my creative well, like taking my notebook, maybe trying, like if you still feel like writing a poem or something else like completely out of your comfort zone is a great way to refill that well and try to just, I don't know, just taking new sources of information. I love trying to read too, like a nonfiction book with a fiction book. Reading a craft book is a great way. Usually they're very motivating in a sense. They're not really craft based, but more motivation based. So that's always a good one as well. Let's see if there is any other questions here that I might have missed.
I think I've mentioned this on my channel. Definitely, I have an entire video on body doubling, but that is one of the things that I have used many times to help motivate me when I am having a hard time focusing specifically. So it's not necessarily lack of energy or lack of desire, it's lack of focus. So if you're having focusing problems, you might try body doubling. Sprints are good. You might need something a little different. There are study rooms, things like that, Discord servers with video chats. There are lots of ways to get around that. So
yeah, and that goes straight
into
the just like finding time that works for you, and it's going to take experimentation and a lot of patience. So I just want to stress that as well, that this is something that I've personally been working on for years. and am still struggling with. So keep chugging, keep going. It's going to take a lot. Just be patient with yourself, and eventually you'll get to a healthy creative grind, but it's going to take a lot of time. So this is not an overnight fix. This is something that you're going to have to personally like vow to yourself. I'm going to work on this. I'm going to have a creative grind that's going to be healthy and work with my schedule. And I'm going to devote time and to both my art and to any other obligation that I have that'll be good for my mental health. All right, so we are at the end of time now. I just wanted to thank everyone so much for joining us. If you found this panel discussion helpful, please make sure to like this video before you leave and consider subscribing for more writing vlogs and discussion videos and sprinting live streams. Check out the Authortube Writing Conference playlist in the description box below for the next session, and hopefully we'll both see you all for the Dimensional Scenes revision workshop on Cory N Davis's channel at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss it, and be there, be square, and we will all see you very, very, very soon. Bye, guys. Oh, and there's a feedback form. If you fill that out, you can get giveaways. That's also in the description.
Feedback form. Fill it out, please.
Yep, fill it out. All right, bye, guys. Thank you so much. Bye.